Hi there, welcome to kneppyinvests. Alcidion is a company I did hold a few years ago, and the main reason I decided to sell out of the company was because I thought the valuation was getting a bit too high, a little bit too much hype in the company, and I thought I'd just take some profits. But I have put Alcidion back onto my radar, back onto some of my watch lists, because the share price has dropped almost 50% since the highs we saw in June. Share price at ended up closing on the 15th of December was about 24 cents. We did see the share price almost get to 50 cents. I think it was about 40 cents or 48 cents back in June. I wasn't planning on doing a video in regards to Alcidion's most recent Appendix 4C for the September quarter, because in terms of the financial results, it was probably one of the most disappointing quarters this company has given the market over the past few years. But in saying that, receipts from this company can be quite lumpy, and there is a possibility the December quarter will be significantly better than this quarter. So potentially this decrease in share price is leading to a buying opportunity. Another reason why the share price has decreased a fair bit in the past few weeks is because Alcidion did a capital raising and an acquisition, and it seems like the market is not really liking this acquisition. In my opinion, this acquisition, and I won't talk about this acquisition in this video, but this acquisition is a strategic one, and some of the questions I've seen or read from shareholders is the lack of growth in the company they have acquired. But I do think this is a potential strategic decision from Alcidion management. They're thinking long term, and the market right now is more obsessed about the short to medium term. And I think that's the reason why we have seen Alcidion share price punished since they announced this capital raising for the acquisition. What does Alcidion do? Now, they are a health tech sort of company. And the best way to think of Alcidion, I'll try to explain this as simply as possible because it is way more complex than what I'm going to talk about right here. But just think of the amount of data that's in hospitals. And funnily enough, hospitals, health clinics, when it comes to tech, they're very slow adopters. So you have all of this data in regards to patients on many different systems. And Alcidion is trying to bring this all together with their solutions, their products like Maya Precision, and they bring all this data together to allow doctors to make better decisions for patients. So that's exactly the sort of thing they are doing right now. They have moved into the UK in recent years, and that looks like it is a successful push. And one of the reasons why we did see a lot of interest in this company over the past 2 years. Alcidion was founded in 2000 and listed on the ASX on the 29th of February 2016. You won't see many companies list on the 29th of February. Alcidion, this was a backdoor listing via Narkuta Resources, and if I remember correctly, Narkuta listed in 2011 or 12. If you don't know what a backdoor listing is, it's listing via a company, more than likely a mining company, who had grand ambitions, and those ambitions didn't come or didn't play out, and they've decided to move into a different direction. And Narkuta Resources decided that their shareholders were better off owning Alcidion shares, and that's exactly what happened. The CEO is Kate Quirk. She's been the CEO since July 2018. She has a 4.1% holding in the company. Now, the Chief Scientific Officer, or maybe it's his Chief Medical Officer, Malcolm Pradhan, he has a larger shareholding in this company at 11.7%. Also, Australian Super seems to be interested in Alcidion. They have a 4.6% stake in Alcidion as well. Now, when it comes to the market cap, and this is at a share price of 24 cents, $299 million market cap, I still think that is a little bit too high for this company, but the market is pricing a little bit of a premium to Alcidion's valuation because of the potential in this company over the next 5 to 10 years. So there's a bit of a premium. So we can't really look at the current financial state of the company and expect that to give us a good sort of target for the valuation of the company, we need to factor in the potential over the next 5 to 10 years, which is a really hard thing to do, and why you are seeing a little bit of volatility in the Alcidion share price over the past few years, and why we've seen the share price drop almost 50% since June. The decode for Alcidion is ALC, and I always confuse that with Australian Labs Clinical, which is ACL. When you look at the financial state, the financial numbers for financial year 2021 for Alcidion, some of these numbers do look quite gaudy. For a company that has a market cap of 300 million, revenue is climbing. So this company is a growth company, and it would want to be a growth company with that sort of valuation. When you think that revenue is only 25.9 million, but that has grown from 18.6 million. Fairly high gross margins, and the gross margins did increase from the previous year and finished at 88% in financial year 2021. Now, the company is not profitable at this point in time, loss-making by 2.2 million in financial year 21, but they were operational cash flow positive by 1.6 million. That's a very important potential, I won't say turnaround because this company hasn't been suffering, but potential inflection point for this company, the fact they are operational cash flow positive on a yearly basis. They also had $25 million of net cash at the end of the financial year. And when you look at some of the valuation metrics, in particular price operating cash flow, they do look fairly high. But again, I do think the market is pricing a little bit of premium to the valuation of this company because of the future potential. Price to sales ratio 11.5, not too stretched, but anything above 10 is looking a little bit high. But I have seen some companies significantly higher than that. Price operating cash flow 187, and that's off a very low base because operating cash flow is only 1.6 million. And price to annual recurring revenue 18.4. They do provide some annual recurring revenue. They do have annual recurring revenue, and 18.5 again is a little bit higher than what I would like. One of the main reasons I decided to do this video on Alcidion, apart from the decrease in share price and the fact that it is looking a little bit more attractive now, is to have a look at how Alcidion did in the most recent quarter, which finished in September. They released the September quarter results towards the end of October. So we have a look at that in the next slide. But in this slide, we're looking back 1 year ago to September quarter of 2020, the first quarter of the financial year. Receipts to customers 6.4 million, and they were burning through a fair bit of cash, particularly staff costs 4.5 million and administration costs 1.1 million. And overall, Alcidion was operational cash flow negative in this quarter by $1.1 million, but they had plenty of cash on hand, $14.7 million at the end of this specific quarter. So now let's have a look at the most recent quarter, and just so we can see how this company has progressed over the past year. Now, if you compare these two quarters, 1 year apart, it does not look like Alcidion has progressed very far. And this is one of the problems you do when you compare not quarter on quarter, but year on year quarters. You might not see any growth in between. That is potential for Alcidion, and why I like to look at cash receipts history for every quarter through time. And we'll have a look at that in the next slide. But receipts on customers, if you compare last year's quarter to this year's quarter, had only grown by $100,000. So you might say and argue there's no growth in this company at all. Product manufacturing operating costs actually were down $500,000, but staff costs had grew by 1.4 million. Administrations grew by 900,000, and even GST was up 700,000. Now, if you add everything together here, the company was operational cash flow negative by 3.4 million, which was, in terms of operational cash flow, the worst quarter this company has experienced over the last 5 years, I believe. Now, they still have a lot of cash on hand. They began this quarter with 25 million because they are burning through a lot of cash. They finished the quarter with only 21.5 million. But I do think this is, I won't say a one-off, but you do have to take into account that receipts for this company can be quite lumpy, and just because, particularly when I show you the next slide, there is a chance we might see a significant rise in receipts in the December quarter. And if we do get a significant rise, Alcidion could go back to being operational cash flow positive. As I mentioned in the previous slide, it can be a little bit dangerous when you just compare two quarters, maybe just random quarters, and you make some arguments in regards to this company based off those two quarters. For instance, if you looked at 1 year ago to the September quarter and compare it to this year's quarter, you'd say this company is not growing. So that's why I like to look at the receipts history through time, and this goes back all the way to the March quarter 2016, and we have seen a significant growth in receipts for Alcidion, and one of the reasons this company is growing is because they are quite acquisitive. Not inquisitive, acquisitive, which means they make a lot of acquisitions, and some of these acquisitions have done very well for the company, but the more and more acquisitions a company makes, the larger chance there is that one of these acquisitions will not do well. So you do have to keep that in mind for companies you buy that are continually doing acquisitions. Now, the stage Alcidion is in their business life, there's less chance of that, or less chance that acquisition will be unsuccessful. So at this point in time, Alcidion will have to show the market that they can grow significantly just through organic growth. So a lot of this growth we're seeing with cash receipts is because of acquisitions. Not all of it is, but a lot of it is. So they have grown receipts at a compound quarterly growth rate since March 2016, 18.8% per quarter. But if you just look at the last 3 years and go back to the October quarter 2018, receipts have only grown at 2.2% per year. But the whole reason that looks fairly small is because the most recent quarter was a down quarter. You just look at the past two quarters, March 2021 and June 21, receipts were 11.5 million and 9.7 million in those two quarters. Overall, the trend is up for Alcidion, but there is a bit of lumpiness here. So the trick to Alcidion is just don't look at one quarter in isolation to determine whether the company has stopped growing or has continued to grow. You have to look at quite a few quarters to get the overall picture of how the company is performing. In this slide, I'm just showing you how receipts, staff costs, administration costs, and cash flow have performed or gone over the past 3 years. I just wanted to see if there's any noticeable trend. We already know receipts are growing through time, and that is represented by that squiggly blue line at the top. But again, the overall trend is up. So I do have a linear trend for all these receipts, staff costs, administration costs, and cash flow. Staff costs are increasing through time as well, which should be expected. This is a growing company. And over the past 3 years, staff costs have actually doubled almost exactly from 3 million to 6 million. Administration costs have also increased from 1.3 million to 1.9 million, while cash flow has been relatively up and down over the past 3 years. Unfortunately, the most recent quarter was the worst quarter, but the two previous quarters to this quarter were the best quarters for Alcidion, and I just think that really shows you how lumpiness the cash receipts and business is for this company, and how you shouldn't just judge the company's performance of one quarter alone. So overall, everything is increasing. Now, the trend for cash flow is actually down, and that's only because of the most recent quarter, which was negative 3.4 million. If you take away that, in fact, cash receipts would probably generally be going up fairly slowly. Now to the weekly chart for Alcidion, going all the way back to when they backdoor listed onto the ASX in 2016. You can see a massive jump in volume. So there was a little bit of excitement, a little bit of hype around this backdoor listing. In fact, the share price did increase over, would have been about a 6 to 8 month period. In fact, it climbed the share price from 3.5 cents to about 13.5 cents. But from that time where we did see the high around about October, November 2016, all the way to the start of 2019, the volume came down, and coinciding with the decreasing volume, the share price also was falling away quite gradually. And that is telling us the market was less interested in this company, so they had to show us something to get the market excited. And that happened in March 2019, a definite breakout in the share price during that period, and that coincides with an increase in volume. Again, the market is getting excited, and we saw a run on the share price. In fact, it went from 3.5 cents to a high of 30 cents, almost a 10-bagger over almost a 9 to 10 month period. And then we did see a share price pull back, moving from 30 cents all the way to a low of about 10 cents during the COVID-19 financial panic. But then there was a breakout in about October last year. We are to see that breakout in the daily chart in the next slide. A definite breakout on some good news. We also saw a bit of a spike in volume, and then the share price climbed from about 12.5 cents to a high of 47.5 cents. But over the past 5-6 months, we have seen share price under pressure and has fallen from that high of about 48 cents to a current share price at the end of closing on the 15th of December at 24.5. So almost 50% decrease in share price. The other thing to take note here is the last time we have seen the share price in between the 250-week moving average, which is the two bottom moving average lines here, we have seen the share price bounce out of that area to the upside, and we're in that zone right now. But a lot of negative sentiment behind this company right now because of this acquisition, because the share price is in a downtrend, and we'd want to see that sentiment turn around and the trend to turn around as well. And we'll be able to see the trend turning around as we look at the daily chart. So let's have a look at the daily chart right now. Before we talk about what's happening right now with Alcidion's share price, this chart goes all the way back to September 2020. And the reason I went that far back was I wanted to show you the breakout in the share price, because right now I am looking for breakout in the share price. I'm looking for announcements being released by companies, and this was the sort of breakout I am looking for right now. The breakout happened on the 9th of November 2020 when Alcidion signed a deal with South Tees Hospital, NHS, a $9.5 million deal. Share price rose 44% on that day. Now, there will be a lot of investors who will refuse to buy in a company when the share price rises 44% because of recency bias. They see the share price of Alcidion that closed about 17.5 cents, and they think, well, the share price was significantly lower than that a few days ago, say 12.5 cents. So why would I buy now? But the situation has changed. The story has changed. And you can see the share price, because this announcement brought a bit of excitement to the market. You can see that with the volume on that day was quite high. And that significant increase in interest from the market can push the share price higher for a company. And we saw that play out over the next 6 to 8 months. The share price of Alcidion rose from about 17.5 cents to a high of 47.5 cents. So even though it rose to 44% on the 9th of November, it rose another 300% or so over the next 6 to 8 months. But sentiment does shift. Particularly, it can shift on the most smallest of things. And we did see the volume starting to drift down, which meant as the share price rose with Alcidion, and I do like to see volume rising as share price rises. That tells you there's more participants in the market getting excited. And if we don't see the volume increase, we're going to see the sentiment start to drop away. And that's exactly what we saw in June of this year. We did see the share price reach a high of 47.5 cents. But it started to drift lower, and the volume started to drift lower as well. So it moved from there being positive sentiment to, I'd say, neutral sentiment. Share price was drifting lower, but volume was fairly low as well. But About a month ago, we did see the share price move lower or below the 3 moving averages to about 31 or 32 cents. And that was just before they made the announcement about this acquisition and capital raising. And the share price fell significantly because of that announcement to 27.5 cents and continued to fall over the next 4 trading days. So significant negative sentiment has moved in regards to Alcidion. Seems like the market does not like this announcement, this acquisition, and that's why the share price has fallen. But that does lead to possible opportunities, potentially at this point in time, for long-term investors who don't care about looking at the technicals or the charts. But I would be patient right now because there is negative sentiment. The trend is down. We just don't know how low the share price can fall from here. It could go significantly lower. Yeah, and we just don't know how low it could go. So I'll be waiting for a shift in sentiment or it to become neutral, share price to start consolidating, going sideways, and then eventually a share price starting to move upwards, a new uptrend's developing, and that's when you take a position in the company because we don't know how long that whole procedure could take. It could be a 2 or 3 year period where the share price of Alcidion could be just going sideways. And to be honest with you, you won't want to be holding a company whose share price is just going sideways. That's all I have for this video, mostly in regards to the September quarter Appendix 4C for Alcidion, but also talking about other aspects in regards to this company. I will be honest with you, as the share price does fall, become a little bit more interested, but with the market cap still around 300 million, I do think the valuation of this company is a little bit too high. And I think one of the reasons I do think that, even though there are some people out there who are fairly excited about the long-term potential of Alcidion, I still think that story has to play out. And I want to see how it plays out before I take a position in the company. And the only way I will take another position in Alcidion is if I see a shift in sentiment to positive, and if I start to see the share price move into an uptrend, and I have no idea how long I'll have to wait, but I have put Alcidion onto my watch list, and I'll be paying close attention of how the financials play out over the next few quarters and see if we get some positive news from the company. Otherwise, I'm not a financial advisor. If you do need financial advice, make sure you seek out someone who is qualified and can speak to your own financial needs. That's it for this video. Have a good day. Bye.